Thanks. Does anyone else have some questions there? Thanks, Kentaro, for specifically addressing that one, well, attempting to with from Abunda's question. I think it also has to do with, you know, if we know that, you know, policy or current government or practice have prices that are uncompetitive and are really unaffordable for the poorest of the poor, is to strive for policy that can aim for prices or for technologies or equipment that are reasonable prices for those that cannot afford them. You know, we're looking at, today we looked at the mobile phone costs, where people are, you know, in South Africa are investing, you know, 17% of their income expenditures on mobile and communication expenditures of their whole budget, while the average is what, 2 to 3% worldwide. So how is it that we can push that 17% lower, closer to the 2 to 3% that the rest of the world is experiencing?
Well, so I think that's an interesting question, but there is an equivalent idea in energy policy. So people often say that or gasoline is expensive, petrol is expensive, and that means that it is necessarily discriminating against people who are poor. So we should make it as cheap as possible. Also, from an environmental standpoint, people say, well, you know, if it's less expensive, then it will cost us less, and we will be able to do other things with that money, possibly build alternative energy systems. And there's an interesting, there's an economic paradox called Jevons paradox, where basically, as you decrease the price of something, if it's something that people want anyway, what happens is that consumption of that thing only increases. And in some cases, it increases to the point that you end up spending more money on those things, especially if it's something like talk time, where obviously the less expensive it is, the more you can talk. The balance that you're talking about, you know, 2% versus 70%, I realize is a challenge, but I think it's a symptom of a much deeper issue, which is simply that poor people are poor, and so they have less money to spend on everything. They also spend more than 50% of their budget on food, and that's a problem. Does it mean that we should try to decrease the cost of food? On the one hand, yes. On the other hand, I think it's widely understood that working just to decrease the cost of food often means that farmers get paid less for their food, and so you're not helping people with the production side, with the side of earning income. That balance, I have not yet seen, you know, conclusive evidence either way on the economics of that, of whether it makes sense to try to shoot for those things or not to. But I do think there's a challenge, there's a problem in seeing it in isolation. And this is often a problem in development, which is that you see lots of individual problems in isolation, and trying to address them at a surface level often creates more problems than looking deeper at the underlying challenge.
Okay, does anyone else have questions?
I just want to make one last comment. I'm coming at this from the HCI perspective, and also
Susan, do you want to come up and okay, we have Susan. Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself as well. Microphone, I suppose.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm here in Durban. Met Kathleen and she invited me, but you're absolutely right. I mean, computer scientists haven't really cared about poverty in the United States, and all of a sudden they're all excited thinking the mobile phone is going to fix everything in Africa. And I think it's about shifting the focus away from things like poverty reduction and reducing illiteracy and doing what we do best as computer scientists, and that's making it easier for people to do everyday things they want to do, like exchange money, communicate with family and friends. So I think it's misplaced for people, at least in my research community, to spend so much time and effort on poverty, and there are other issues, other ways that I think the field could benefit people in the developing world. So I just wanted to add that.
Great. I just finished writing an article a magazine called Communications of the Association for Computing Machinery. There's a global association called the ACM that is an association of computer scientists. And basically in the article, what I advise people who are computer scientists to do if they're interested in international development, and I find that there are an increasing number of them, is to worry more not so much about creating products that poor people can consume to make their life better, but to focus more on helping them become better economic producers. And this is one of the major confusions, I think, in the entire area of ICT and development, which is that people think that any association with technology is positive because that's been their personal experience. And so what they want to do is try to spread the technology. But really, if you think about it, the people who become rich from technology are not the consumers, right? Think about it, when you last bought your fancy phone, have you since become rich as a result of that phone? Probably not. On the other hand, think about what that means for Google and Apple and HTC and whoever else is manufacturing those phones as well as the software, right? This is the way that they make money, and it means that's the way they pay their employees. And all of those companies make a distinction in who they hire, not based on whether they happen to have a phone, but based on their educational background, their educational qualifications, their previous work experience, and so forth. And so the important thing in development is to help make everybody a capable producer of something. It doesn't have to be technology, but of something. And one of the major challenges is in thinking that consumption is the way out of poverty when consumption is in some sense a result of what happens when you have greater income. So in the article, I basically recommend that if you're a computer scientist or an engineer and you're really interested in trying to help people who are poor, that you should work more on mentoring them, on teaching them, on giving them the skills that would allow them to be better producers in the economy, so that if they do want to buy things, that they'll have more means to do so, and less focus on giving them technologies that they can use.
Thanks, Kentaro. And I think we're going to be wrapping it up just now, but I just wanted to give it to Julian if he has any last words to close off.
Hey, Kentaro, nice to see you again.
Hi, Julian.
Good. When we met at the ICT for Development conference in London, I noticed at the end, after that, you may have been the first person to ever blog me. I don't think I'd ever been blogged before. And in that, the comment which you made reference to was the results of work which we've done in KwaZulu-Natal, where we concluded that it would take about 100 years if it was technology alone to be able to get people to use ICT to work their way out of poverty. Why did you find that comment interesting? Would be a question to you. And
I think it's, go ahead. Yeah, I think obviously it's interesting because if you listen to some of the rhetoric around ICT and development, it sounds as if some people believe that if you get the right technology in the right way to the right people, that all of their problems will be solved. And technology has this capacity to cater to that rhetoric because it is so pliable in the way it is used, right? If you think about PCs, they can be used for just about everything. You can use it for disseminating agriculture information. You can use it for education. You can use it for telemedicine. And so one by one, every problem that people think about as a challenge of poverty is in theory addressable through PC in some form. You could certainly make that case for mobile phones. Most services that you would like to deliver to poorer populations are services that would certainly be enhanced through communication and through electronic exchange of money and so forth. And so there's a tendency to believe that these technologies will really fundamentally, the word transform and revolutionize are often used around these technologies. And I think to some extent, they certainly do change the world. I mean, the change just in mobile phones in the last 5 to 10 years is dramatic. particularly in different parts of Africa. But on the other hand, their effect on poverty is much less dramatic. I think the interesting thing about your work was that you found that there was a definite economic impact, and yet it's the level of impact that again will take 100 years to before we see the kind of change that most development practitioners would like to see. 100 years is a long time. That's a span of time that includes maybe 4 or 5 generations. And so if you really focus on something like education in one generation, it's conceivable that you could change a country from one that is primarily agricultural to one that is actually able to deliver goods that developed countries would pay much more for. You could imagine transforming a country that way, and in fact that's happened many times in Asia within a span of let's say 30 to 50 years. And so, if technology is allowed, it makes you question. The 100 years certainly does make you question whether it's the most effective way, even given that it is healthy.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's fun to join your class.
Thanks, Kentaro. Cheers.
Bye.